For generations, the toy box has symbolized childhood innocence, a place of wonder, imagination, and endless possibility. But history tells a far darker story. Before safety standards and federal regulations, many toys weren't just playthings. They were hidden threats, capable of injury, poisoning, or even death. These weren't mere design flaws, but chilling artifacts of an era where progress outweighed protection. In this countdown, we uncover the top 10 historical toys that were downright terrifying or deadly, each one a shocking reminder of how dangerous childhood once was. At number 10, we step into the world of innovation gone disastrously wrong with the infamous celluloid dolls. Emerging in the late 19th century, these figures were celebrated as marvels of modern technology. Made from celluloid, the world's first successful synthetic plastic, they were cheap, lightweight, and easy to mold into beautiful, delicate toys that dazzled children across Europe, America, and Japan. Their porcelain-like finish and affordability made them an instant hit among the growing middle class, offering a glamorous alternative to fragile and expensive ceramic dolls. But behind their charming faces lurked a horrifying secret. The very material that made them so accessible was also derived from pyroxylin, a volatile compound used in explosives like gun cotton. In essence, these miracle dolls were fragile firebombs waiting for the slightest spark. Countless reports from factories told of devastating blazes ignited by this unstable plastic, with lives lost in infernos, sparked by the toys themselves. Children playing near open flames, lanterns, or fireplaces unknowingly held a deadly hazard in their tiny hands. Urban legends about exploding combs and toys were not far from reality, as the danger of spontaneous combustion was very real. This era highlights a grim contradiction. What was hailed as progress in material science was simultaneously a hidden menace that turned innocent play into mortal risk. The legacy of celluloid dolls serves as a chilling reminder that the pursuit of cheapness and novelty often overlooked safety, transforming playtime into a literal trial by fire. At number 9, we uncover a far more insidious danger: toys painted with poison. During the lavish Victorian era, when vivid colors symbolized wealth and beauty, scientists discovered dazzling pigments like Scheele's green, made with deadly copper arsenite. This brilliant, almost glowing shade became the favorite for wallpapers, fabrics, and yes, even children's toys. Brightly painted doll clothes, wooden soldiers, and cheerful rocking horses were coated in these toxins, unknowingly transforming childhood into a slow dance with death. The danger of these toys was not immediate flames like celluloid, but silent poisoning. Children handling or chewing on painted surfaces absorbed arsenic or later, lead, another hazardous element used extensively in toy paints and plastics well into the 20th century. Symptoms included rashes, vomiting, crippling stomach cramps, headaches, and tragically, in many cases, death. Unlike visible injuries, arsenic worked slowly, almost invisibly, leaving families baffled as to why their children grew weaker day after day. Worse still, factory workers producing these toys were exposed to toxic dust, leading to lifelong health problems. Even decades later, antique toys handed down through families remained dangerous heirlooms laced with lead-based paint, long after safety warnings emerged. In fact, lead continued in manufacturing until 1978 in the United States and longer elsewhere, ensuring generations of children were exposed to neurotoxins capable of impairing brain development. What looked like a vibrant, innocent plaything was, in truth, a chemical weapon disguised as fun. The silent scourge of toxic toys proves that sometimes the most terrifying threats are the ones hidden in plain sight. At number 8, we encounter one of history's most chilling legends, the unsettling tale of the Victorian mourning dolls. Shrouded in macabre fascination, these dolls are said to have been life-sized wax effigies crafted to resemble deceased infants during an era when child mortality was heartbreakingly common. According to the lore, grieving families commissioned these eerie creations, weighted with sand for realism, clothed them in the garments of the departed, and even embedded locks of the child's real hair. Their faces were sculpted with eyes closed, mimicking eternal sleep, before being placed in cribs or rocked gently as though the child still lived. To modern eyes, the thought of parents tenderly dressing and cradling such a figure is deeply unsettling, but it speaks to the desperation of grief in a world where death was an everyday presence. However, while chilling in concept, historians suggest the widespread practice of mourning dolls is largely exaggerated. Instead, this myth seems to blend genuine Victorian customs, post-mortem photography, wax devotional figures of the infant Christ, and rare anecdotal cases of memorial dolls. Yet, the endurance of this legend in popular imagination reflects our own discomfort with mortality and the haunting ways people once coped with loss. Even if largely myth, the idea that a doll could serve as both a comfort object and a grotesque reminder of death cements it as one of the most disturbing toys of history. Whether fact or folklore, mourning dolls represent the blurred line between memory, grief, and horror, making them one of the most unsettling entries in our countdown of terrifying toys. At number 7, we move into the 1990s, when one of the most beloved toys of all time turned into a genuine nightmare: the Cabbage Patch Snack Time Kid. By this point, Cabbage Patch dolls had already become icons of childhood, sparking Black Friday riots in the 1980s and cementing themselves as a cultural craze. But in 1997, Mattel decided to take things one step further with an interactive twist: a doll that could actually eat. The Snack Time Kid featured motorized jaws that chewed plastic snacks, giving the uncanny illusion of a hungry living companion. Children adored the novelty of feeding their doll cookies, chips, and fries, but lurking beneath the cuteness was a shocking design flaw. The doll's mechanical jaws had no off switch. Once activated, they chewed continuously, unable to tell the difference between a toy accessory and a child's flesh or hair. Soon, terrifying reports flooded in, little fingers getting painfully trapped in the doll's grinding mouth, tufts of hair caught and yanked from scalps, and panicked children screaming as their supposed friend turned predator. At least 35 confirmed cases of injury were reported before Mattel finally pulled the doll from shelves. The Snack Time Kid wasn't dangerous because of flammability or toxic chemicals, but because of a fundamental mechanical oversight that transformed playtime into horror. The lesson was chilling. When automation is poorly thought out, even a cuddly toy can morph into a relentless, jaw-clamping menace. What was meant to be a nurturing, interactive play experience became instead a creepy, cautionary tale of technology gone wrong. At number 6, we launch into the world of magic meets disaster with the unforgettable Sky Dancers. Introduced in the mid-1990s, these 9-inch fairy-like dolls promised to sprinkle a little wonder into childhood. The concept was simple but mesmerizing. Place the doll on its launcher, pull a cord, and watch as it whirled into the air with delicate wings outstretched, twirling and dancing like an enchanted creature. For children, it felt like holding magic in their hands. But this fantasy quickly spiraled into chaos. The dolls, made of rigid plastic with stiff foam-tipped wings, launched with surprising force and almost never where they were intended to go. Instead of floating gracefully, they would shoot across rooms unpredictably, transforming into high-speed projectiles with the stopping power of a miniature missile. The Consumer Product Safety Commission documented more than 150 serious injuries, ranging from corneal scratches and permanent eye damage to broken teeth, facial cuts, and concussions. Parents described scenes of living room mayhem where one child's delight quickly became another's ER visit. Unlike other toys with removable hazards or design flaws, the danger here was built into the core function. A toy whose sole purpose was to fly turned into a weapon every time it left the launcher. By the late 1990s, Sky Dancers were recalled, cementing their legacy as one of the most hazardous toys of their era. What was marketed as a whimsical flight of imagination instead became a hard-hitting reality check. Sometimes the very magic that excites us hides the most unpredictable dangers. Number 5. We rewind to the 1960s, where a toy intended to spark creativity instead delivered burns and toxic fumes. The infamous Creepy Crawlers Thingmaker. Riding on the success of the wildly popular Easy Bake Oven, toy manufacturer A.C. Gilbert sought to expand the idea of children cooking by targeting a different audience: those who wanted creepy bugs instead of sugary cakes. The Thingmaker allowed kids to pour brightly colored Plastigoop into metal molds shaped like spiders, lizards, and worms, then bake them in a real electrically heated oven. Within minutes, the oozy liquid transformed into rubbery creations that looked startlingly lifelike. The marketing promised hours of gross fun, but in practice, the toy was a nightmare. The oven reached extreme temperatures, hot enough to cause third-degree burns to curious fingers. The Plastigoop itself released noxious chemical fumes when heated, exposing children to dangerous vapors in the name of fun. Parents soon realized that AFI had essentially handed their children miniature chemical labs paired with a hazard-level heating device. Worse still, the molds and liquid were marketed as collectibles, encouraging children to spend long hours exposed to potential poisoning or burns. No modern safety testing or heat shields were in place because they didn't exist yet. The creepy crawler's thingmaker was less a toy and more a terrifying science experiment masquerading as fun. Its enduring legacy is a chilling reminder of an era when manufacturers freely combined fire, toxins, and children's curiosity without a second thought. What sounded like harmless entertainment was in fact a recipe for disaster, proving that not every creative spark should be ignited in a child's hands. At number 4, we step into the modern age of globalization with a chilling case of hidden chemistry gone wrong: the infamous Aquadots. Released in 2007, this arts and crafts kit instantly captured children's imaginations. The premise was simple: arrange tiny colorful beads into a creative design, spray them with water, and watch them fuse into a solid shape. To parents, it seemed like the perfect blend of creativity and safety. No heat, no sharp edges, just water and beads. But beneath this harmless appearance lurked a nightmare. A foreign manufacturer secretly swapped out the approved adhesive chemical for a cheaper substitute. That substitution turned catastrophic because the new compound, when ingested, metabolized into gamma-hydroxybutyrate, GHB, a powerful central nervous system depressant, more commonly known as the date rape drug. Children who accidentally swallowed the beads experienced life-threatening symptoms: respiratory failure, seizures, vomiting, and in some cases, slipping into comas. One child required 5 days of hospitalization after ingesting only a handful of beads. The horror was not just in the product itself, but in what it represented. A global supply chain so fractured that cost-cutting decisions thousands of miles away directly endangered children in unsuspecting households. The recall was massive, sparking outrage and distrust in toy safety worldwide. This scandal became the driving force behind the Consumer Product Safety Improvement Act of 2008, which tightened regulations and testing requirements for all imported toys. Aquadots is remembered as more than just a dangerous toy. It is a cautionary tale of modern manufacturing, proving that sometimes the greatest risks are hidden not in design flaws, but in the invisible shortcuts taken behind the scenes. At number 3, we revisit the golden era of late 1970s science fiction, when the hit TV show Battlestar Galactica inspired legions of young fans. And tragically, one of the most devastating toy accidents in history. Among the merchandise was the Colonial Viper spaceship, a sleek plastic starfighter that fired spring-loaded red-tipped missiles. To children, this was the ultimate thrill: intergalactic dogfights reenacted in their living rooms. But the danger wasn't in imagination, it was in the very mechanism itself. In 1979, tragedy struck when a 4-year-old boy placed one of the missiles into his mouth and accidentally triggered the launcher. The projectile shot down his throat, choking him to death. The heartbreaking loss of a single child triggered an immediate recall of the toy and lawsuits against its manufacturer, Mattel. But the impact went far beyond one company. This tragedy became the direct catalyst for the universal choking hazard warnings we now see on virtually every toy. With small parts, it reshaped the entire industry's approach to safety, turning one child's death into a hard-learned lesson that continues to protect millions of children today. What makes this story so haunting is the contrast. The very feature that made the toy exciting, its spring-loaded firepower, was also its deadly flaw. The Battlestar Galactica missile launcher is remembered not only as a dangerous relic of its time, but as the unfortunate spark that forced the toy industry to prioritize safety over spectacle. At number 2, we head to the American backyard for one of the deadliest toys ever sold: lawn darts. Marketed as a wholesome family game throughout the 1970s and 1980s, lawn darts involved tossing oversized, weighted darts with sharp, metal spear-like tips at plastic rings placed on the ground. They were meant to arc gracefully through the air before sticking into the grass. In reality, they were miniature javelins, capable of causing devastating injuries with a single misthrow. Between 1970 and 1988, lawn darts were responsible for more than 6,100 ER visits, leaving victims with puncture wounds, skull fractures, eye damage, and internal bleeding. At least 4 children lost their lives. The most tragic case occurred in 1987 when 7-year-old Michelle Snow was struck in the head and killed. Her grieving father, David Snow, launched a relentless campaign to ban the toy, lobbying government officials and raising public awareness about its dangers. His efforts succeeded, and in 1988, the Consumer Product Safety Commission issued a permanent nationwide ban on the sale of lawn darts. The toy's transformation from backyard fun to outlawed death trap highlights a broader cultural shift in how society defines acceptable risk. Once considered just another summer pastime, lawn darts now stand as a grim reminder of how tradition and entertainment can mask lethal hazards. This case also demonstrates the power of persistent advocacy, proving that one family's tragedy can drive change strong enough to protect generations to come. Finally, at number 1, we unveil perhaps the most jaw-dropping toy ever created, the Gilbert U-238 Atomic Energy Lab. Released in 1950 during the dawn of the atomic age, this toy wasn't a simulation or a plastic model. It was a real working nuclear science kit, complete with actual radioactive materials, retailing for $49.50, equivalent to over $650 today. The set included a Geiger counter, cloud chamber, spinthariscope, and shockingly, 4 uranium-bearing ore samples. Marketed as an educational wonder, the lab was advertised as completely safe, with reassurances stamped by Oak Ridge Laboratories. Yet buried in the manual was a chilling warning. If the ore jars were broken, children risked spreading radioactive dust across their homes, while the radiation exposure was relatively low if the kit was used as directed. The very idea of packaging nuclear material for children reveals a staggering lack of foresight. Even more ironically, the toy was discontinued after only 2 years, not because of safety concerns, but because it was too expensive and too advanced for children to enjoy. Today, the Gilbert Atomic Energy Lab is often hailed as the most dangerous toy ever sold, perfectly symbolizing an era when scientific curiosity far outpaced common sense. It remains a powerful reminder of the reckless optimism of the atomic age, when even radiation could be shrink-wrapped, boxed, and handed to children in the name of education. No other toy better captures the fine line between innovation and insanity, making it a deserving number 1 in the ranking of history's most terrifying playthings. And those were just the top 10, because beyond them lies a gallery of other chilling contenders like Clackers, asbestos-laced kits, and even easy-bake ovens that caused severe burns. These shocking stories remind us that today's toy safety standards were built on decades of tragedy and reform. Every dangerous plaything from the past has left a legacy, shaping the regulations that protect children now. If you enjoyed this dive into history's most terrifying toys, don't forget to comment your thoughts, hit like, and subscribe for more fascinating content. Thanks for watching.